Welcome to Hit or Miss. Today we're taking a look at Sea of Stars. Now this is a game that I was not aware of until just about a month or two ago when I started seeing review threads and people were just saying they were excited. And I looked into it and I saw that they just announced a new demo and I was like, all right, cool, I'll try it out. And then upon trying out the demo, I was like, all right, cool, I gotta play the full version of this game. It had a great experience that I was like, all right, you know what, I'm sold on this. Because for me growing up, while I wasn't like too crazy on JRPGs, I did play games such as Dragon Ball Boost Fury, Legacy of Goku 2, games on the Game Boy that were, you know, in my opinion, they were similar in experience. And so I was like, all right, you know, it's kind of giving me like nostalgia, throwback vibes. You know, I really like pixel art. I like all of it together. So I said, you know what? I need to give the full game a shot because I am aware that this game was targeted towards a lot of people who play Chrono Trigger, you know, games from that era, and that a lot of people do hold Chrono Trigger in high regard. I personally have never played it. I was never really into those games or that sphere when those were coming out. So my opinions and everything that I viewed this game is as someone who's just kind of coming into it that likes pixel art games and, you know, like, all right, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I only include this because I know that people who grew up enjoying Chrono Trigger, and from everything I read online from just different people's reviews, they have different standards and different expectations versus my own when I came into this game. Now, because I want to be fully transparent, I was given a review code by the developers, but they have not seen, altered, or changed this review in any way, shape, or form. All thoughts and opinions in this review is mine and mine solely. Also, throughout this review, I will try and keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I will not go into anything that is major story spoilers or anything that will reveal surprises later on that you typically want to experience your own while you're playing the game. Now let's start with the things that I really enjoy. Now starting with the visuals, this game is gorgeous. I cannot express that enough. As someone who likes to take screenshots in games, I love taking screenshots for this game in particular just because every moment, every single frame, it's screenshot worthy. It's just like you can make it your wallpaper if you really want it to because that's how gorgeous it looks. I don't think anyone who has played this game or reviewed it has had any complaints, and I don't either. There's just something about it that just really hits the nail home for me in terms of, I guess, having that feeling of like what you remember pixel art games being when you were growing up, and then just having it in modern times and it still looks good. There is never a moment where I'm like, oh man, this looks kind of dated or ugly or rough, or I wish that they would have done this a little bit different or better. No, it's chef's kiss to me. One thing that did stand out to me throughout my entire playthrough of this game was just how varied the scenery is. You never really feel like that you're in the same location or the same backdrop or the same location throughout the entire game. It never felt like that at all. Everything just felt different, unique. It just stood out to me as like, wow, they're really going in with the visuals and just making sure that you don't feel like that you're ever repeating the same location. Sure, there are a couple moments where you're going to kind of backtrack, but for the most part throughout this entire game and the entire playthrough, you are always constantly being introduced to new locations, and that's what I love the most about this. I just like seeing new areas. I like when games go and have varied locations, that it's not like this is just the same area but with a couple new items sprinkled in, or if a different time of day, or and actually speaking of time of day, there's throughout the game there's like a night and day system that constantly changes, and accompanied that is the music, but I'll get into that later. But just seeing how the world changes from nighttime and daytime, that's a nice little touch as well too. But I just can't stress enough how much I enjoy the locations. Because I don't want to give spoilers, I won't really say anything about any of them, but I can assure you that if you like going to different locations in a game and you really want your like mouth to have your jaw drop and you're like, oh my god, this is wild, this game will do it for you 100%. Moving on to the music, it is phenomenal. Oh man, I cannot rave enough about it. This is one of the games where I want to go on Spotify and add it to my playlist because I enjoy pretty much every single track of this game. There's honestly no real critiques I can give about the music because all of it's great. There's a couple that are like, they're all right. They don't really stand out to me. But within my first 10 hours or so of playing this game, I was just like, god damn, I was like, they're coming with fire after fire after fire, every single location, and it just has new music and it all just slaps. I enjoy it so much. So it's hard for me to find really anything that I can nitpick or critique. I guess the only real thing I could see people maybe having like nitpicks on is maybe some of the songs were reused for combat. And I'm not saying that like it's used like all the time, but I'm saying for like certain boss fights and certain moments, you kind of hear like the same songs again, or you might hear a different variation of the same one, but just with like different instruments, which it didn't bother me, but I can see why some people might be, you know, a little bit distracted from that, hoping that there was at least a little bit more variety. But For me personally, I didn't mind. I didn't care. I think it was fine as it is. Again, every track was fine. There was just, like I said, one or two that maybe were, could have been better in my opinion. But for the most part, I believe that every track fit the location in the game. Now, moving on to the gameplay, I'm going to kind of encompass everything into this. I will touch on the story at the very end, but right now I want to get to the main meat, the thing that you're going to be playing the most of, which you're interacting with, is the gameplay. And I would say it's pretty good. There are caveats, I think, in my opinion, with combat, but I'll talk about that in a second. What I will say the game does well gameplay wise is that it rewards you for exploring. It makes you want to explore. There are puzzles. There are different areas you can go off the path. You can find different things that actually benefit you and your party for combat or for future side quests. There are a lot of things that you can do in the world, and it's not just empty, vast lands where you just walk for 20,000 years and that's it. And there's nothing that rewards you for going off the path or trying to see what all there is to find and see in the game. There are a couple locations, sure, that are kind of like that, but for the most part, most of them do have things spread out throughout the location that do reward you if you want to explore. It's nothing that's mandatory or required, but again, it is something that does reward you if you do want to go off the beaten path and then see if there is anything to find that can help level up your team. You get armor, you get gear, sometimes you get items that'll be used for a quest later on. So there is a reason to explore, and I'm glad that this game does it, because that's always one of my biggest gripes in games is I like to explore. I like to see what's all around. I don't like to go to another area until I'm done exploring one area, and then if the whole area has nothing at all, then I just feel disappointed, because like, why do you have all this area to let me roam around and look if there's nothing there? So I'm happy that this game doesn't have that same issue. The game also does a great job at introducing new mechanics as you progress through the story. You start off by just running everywhere, and then over time you'll get other accessories and other traversal methods, if you will, without getting into spoilers, and it just adds a little bit of mixture just to switch things up so that you're not always just running left to right or going up and down ladders. It just adds a little bit more variety to the gameplay loop so that you're not just doing the same thing that you started when you first came in the game at 0 hours versus when you finished the game, which for me, I finished the game around 25 hours, give or take. Around 23 to 25 is more or less what I was finishing the game around with, and so from everyone else that I've read is around the same time as well for them. Now, moving on to the combat, it's been a very interesting talking point amongst everyone who's played the game. Some people have enjoyed it, some people are really disappointed. For me, I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, it's not bad, it's all right, but I am aware of other people's opinions and reviews where if you play Chrono Trigger or you play the recently released Chained Echoes, I think it was about a year or two ago, then you kind of come into this game, if you come in hoping that it matches Chained Echoes, dude, you're going to be really disappointed because it doesn't really offer much in terms of variety. And what I mean by that is you start the game off with your 3 characters, you got your 3 party members, and then you have 2 skills, and then it later opens up to 3 skills, and then you have 1 ultimate attack, and eventually as you unlock more party members, it becomes the same for them as well too. The problem with that is just the 3 skills, that's it. It doesn't really offer any more variety beyond that, and so you still have the same skills that you start with at the beginning of the game, you have at the end. It's not like those skills level up, they don't get any special abilities. It just kind of stays the same, even though you kind of hope that it would progress, or maybe you get to level it up or rank up the power so that it does more damage as time progresses. It doesn't happen. This game focuses more on wanting you to switch out party members throughout the game, and when you get towards more like the mid to late game, it wants you to be able to master switching out party members correctly to try and break the locks on enemies so that you can stop their special attack, because that's what's going to deal the most damage to your party. So instead of trying to land as many special attack moves that you can, it focuses on what combo attack do I need or what special attack do I need so I can stop the enemy from using their special attack. On top of that, I forgot to mention, I just said just now, but you have combo attacks as well too. But because of the way the combo system is set up, you have to rebuild your combo point system every single time you get into combat. And so for the most part, you're not really using your combo moves except for when you get into boss battles, because those are the ones that go on for like an eternity. And that's another complaint I read people say. For me, I felt like some battles kind of went on a little bit too long, because the way the boss battles are structured is there's no way to actually see a health bar for them. So you never actually know when you're about to beat them. It might be 2 years from now, it might be 3 years from now. It just really depends on when your setup is for your party, and so you got to kind of just take a guess and just hope that you're finally going to beat them soon, which for some people that's a turnoff. For me, as things progress, I kind of got annoyed by it, but I was never bothered by it to where it made me want to just put the game down and just quit. It was never that bad, but I can see why someone would be annoyed, because sometimes a lot of the bosses don't have like multiple phases. They might have like 2 or 3 different types of moves in their moveset, but it's not like you knock their health down to a certain point and then they start doing something even a lot crazier. Yes, I know some people that play the game are going to go in my comments, but what about some of these bosses? Yes, there are some bosses that do it, but I think it would have benefited the game greatly if every boss had multiple phases, just so it adds to the variety instead of just, all right, they're going to do these same 2 or 3 move sets. Oh, they have a special attack coming. All right, let me stop that again. And then it cycles through. Oh, enemy turns coming up in 2 attacks. Then they attack you with the same basic attack. And oh, they're doing a special attack again. Let me try to stop that. That's what I'm saying. When you get to the late game, that's more so what the game focuses on, is trying to make sure, do you know how to stop an enemy before using their special attack? You will not be destroyed. Your whole team will not be wiped out if they get a special attack off, but it's supposed to be the way to reward you and pretty much build up your combo points faster, because when you break those locks, that's how you build up your combo points, thus allowing you to pull off combo moves, thus building up your ultimate bar as well too, so that you can deal massive damage. Now, whether or not that sounds like fun, that's personally up to you. For me, I didn't mind it. Sure, I got kind of bored with the combat as time progressed, because personally, I wasn't really a fan of the way they wanted to try and incentivize you for using other party members. Essentially, you would have some characters you use for literally only 1 or 2 skills, and that's it. You don't use them for nothing else. And then you had other characters that you use just to break locks, and that's it. And I mean, again, it's all right, but you typically would think that there would be more incentive. The game would force more enemies that really make you have to use these characters. You can't just stick to using the main characters throughout the game. And so they're like, all right, you know, we need to switch things up. You need to start using these people if you want to finish these battles quicker. Because throughout my entire playthrough, I didn't really switch out party members that much. I kind of stuck to the same 2 main characters of the game, and then I would switch out the last party member depending on which locks I needed to break, or if there's a skill I needed real quick just to assist me in the battle. But that does go to a complaint that I've seen some people have, which I personally don't really agree with too much, is that people felt the game was too easy. So with this game, there's a relic system that is made to make the game easier or harder if you want to. There are some things that you can enable that you can turn on or turn off, and that's pretty much the way to adjust the difficulty of the game for you. Now, whether or not some people feel like the game is too easy because there are some moves in the game that are broken for your party members that allow you to make things super easy, that's up to how you want to play the game. Personally though, there are some boss battles that are actually kind of hard, and I've lost to and got game over. But I think people were expecting like every single boss in the game to be so hard that you're getting game over if you're not playing to near perfection in the game. No, they didn't make the game to be that way. This game isn't Dark Souls, nor is it trying to be. I think that is kind of something I didn't really understand reading a lot of people's complaints on that. And again, it's not like everybody's complaining about this, but just reading the general consensus on what I've seen some people agree on the most was, it's just that they believe that combat was too easy and that it should have been a lot harder, and that you should be punished for not using game mechanics correctly. And I think that can be true, but I think that should only really apply for boss battles. I think that's where you should be punished for, and some boss battles at the beginning of the game actually do that pretty well. When it comes to fighting mobs throughout the game's world, I don't really think that you should be punished, nor should it be like mind-blowingly hard and you're like, oh my god, I need to go heal real quick. It doesn't need to be that. Sure, you could ask for it to be more challenging, but I don't really think the game again was trying to go to be Dark Souls hard. And I know some people say, well, it doesn't need to be Dark Souls hard, but it just needs to be challenging. And again, I can agree with that to an extent, but I think it should only really apply more for boss battles or maybe mini bosses than actual just mobs themselves. But overall, I think the combat's fine. I don't think it's a deal breaker. It's not enough to make me put down the controller when I was playing. I was just like, this is so boring. I need to do something. It was never that bad. Yes, I would like to have more skills for my party members. Yes, I would like more reasons to use other party members. That would all be nice, but it is what it is, right? The combat system won't make you quit the game, but it probably will bore you after a while, depending on what you came in with your expectations. And last but not least, let's talk about the story. Now, I'm not going to really harp on it too long. I think it's great for what it is. It's pretty generic. It's pretty much friendship, power, defeat bad guys, you know, things of that liking. You go and meet your friends, you go across the world, you find some new people to join your party, and then you all come together for this ultimate goal to defeat the bad guy, and yada yada yada. It is what it is. That's the best way to describe it. It's not a terrible story. It's not an amazing story either. It's a passable one. I didn't have any problems with it at all. Sure, there was a couple moments that were a little cliche or maybe cheesy, but I think that kind of fits the charm of the game. I know one big talking point, and I've seen this a lot, is a lot of people have talked about grammar errors, and it just distracted them from the entire experience. And I guess maybe it's because I just read this the text so fast, because it's a text-heavy game, right? Sure, I might have noticed a couple things, grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, and I'm not trying to excuse them for it, but at least in my playthrough, I was never distracted by it, as some people were saying, like, it just stopped them completely and they couldn't continue because it was just so glaringly bad. I do not think that's the case. Yes, it does exist. Yes, there are a lot of error or mistakes that could be seen in the game, but I do not think it was to the point where you're just going to drop the game, you're just like, oh, fuck, they didn't add a comma. Man, well, like, what? Like, I don't know. Again, it's not to discredit people's criticism of the game. I understand it, and I agree it shouldn't be there, but I do not think it's as severe as people were making it out to be. Overall, the story's fine. A lot of the characters were written okay. They weren't really expanded on too much to where I at least cared about them too much. Towards the end of the game, they start introducing even some more characters that I think they just fell flat on their face on in terms of trying to get me to care about them. It just left more questions open and not really any answers given at all. There was only really 2 characters throughout this game that really piqued my interest, and I wanted to keep knowing more about them, but the game doesn't really explore it, or at least throughout my playthrough. Maybe there's like some side missions later in the game, post game, that explain more about those characters. But for the most part, they didn't really give too much in detail, and I guess that's kind of on purpose. It wants to keep that mysteriousness, or alludes to, you know, making the player try and question and figure it out themselves. But personally, for me, I would have liked to have more development on those characters, but because of spoiler reasons, I will not go into it. But if you have played the game, then you might know who I'm already talking about. But moving past that, this game is definitely a hit. I highly recommend it, especially for its asking price. I think you'll be satisfied with the entire package as long as you come in here with your expectations in check. If you have played Chrono Trigger or you play Chain Echoes and you're coming in expecting the exact same, but just the bar raised higher, you're going to be disappointed. I say put those expectations a little bit lower. That's not what this game is going to do, and I only say that because this is what I have read from everyone else that had played those games and came in with those expectations, and they were not too satisfied. Like, they still enjoyed the game, but they were disappointed because it didn't meet the same standards that they had for those games. So if you're someone like me who just came in here and hasn't played those games but just likes the aesthetic of pixel art games and just JRPGs in general, then you're going to enjoy this game overall. Overall, the visuals are beautiful and the music is phenomenal. The gameplay has a decent loop. I enjoyed my time playing it. Sure, I had things that I wish could have been done differently, but it didn't ruin the experience for me, and I think that this game is a great package for 35 bucks. And honestly, at the time of me making this review, it's my game of the year. Out of all the games I played up to this point this year, I have had the most fun with Sea of Stars by a long shot. Anyways, you made this far into the video, consider giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, leave me a comment below what you think. Have a great day. Yeah.